You ever get that weird feeling you're being watched, but you just tell yourself you're being extra? Yeah, me too. But what if the strange noise in your basement wasn't just the old house settling? What if your nice new neighbors were actually living a double life straight out of a thriller? Today, we're diving into disturbing, true new home stories that hit way too close to home. From a neighbor who literally wasn't who he claimed to be, to a secret room hidden behind a bookshelf that's gonna make you want to check your walls right now. Trust me, the last story is absolutely unhinged. It's easily one of the scariest true stories of 2025. You're definitely going to want to stay until the end for that one, because after this, you'll never look at your dream home the same way again. 3 years ago, my partner and I bought our first home. It was a modest place, and our neighbors were wonderful. Life was good. So good, in fact, that 18 months later, when those neighbors decided to sell their house, which was larger and had more luxuries like a driveway, a garage, and a bathtub, we jumped at the chance. We bought their house and put our old one right next door up for sale. After reading several motivation letters from potential buyers, we chose a couple named Victor and Elena. This felt like the start of one of those disturbing, true new home accounts. They only spoke in English to us, even though it clearly wasn't their native tongue.
So
But
go ahead
everything
and try it
seemed normal.
yourself. And
They
while
asked
you're at
for
it,
some tips
don't
about the
forget to
house,
like
and we had
and
some pleasant
subscribe.
small-scale small talk. But looking back, that
The
was the
package
calm
was
before
secure,
the storm.
hidden behind the
Even
false
before
wall.
the big incidents, things
Now,
felt off.
with the apartment locked
We
down,
started
all I could
experiencing
do was
bizarre
wait. The
disturbances at
space
the
behind the
strangest
shelf
hours.
seemed undisturbed.
Sometimes at midnight,
But with
we'd
the
hear
information
heavy banging
secured,
or
the
incredibly
priority
loud
now
music
was ensuring
blasting
the
through the
apartment
walls
was
without
safe.
warning.
It's
It
always
wasn't
wise to
constant, but
double-check
it
the
was enough to
details.
make us feel like
After
we
all,
didn't
true
truly know who
security
was
is
living
about
a few feet
controlling
away.
who comes
The first red
and
flag
goes.
appeared when the neighbor,
They think
Victor,
they know where
came
everything
home with
is, but the
severe
real
damage to
value is
both
always
sides of his
hidden in
car.
plain sight.
It looked like he
Now,
had scraped
let's
against
make sure
a
we're
guardrail
secure.
at high speed on both sides. When we asked what happened, he gave a clumsy excuse. A concrete pole on one side and a trailer taking a turn too wide on the other. We chose to believe him, even though the math didn't add up. One evening around 6 p.m., Victor called us in a total panic. He claimed people were outside his house turning security cameras away. He begged us to check it out and call the police. We looked, and sure enough, 2 men were breaking in. We called the cops immediately. It took the cops 20 minutes to arrive, so the burglars were already gone. Victor's wife, Alina, came racing into the street, parked her car, and frantically ran inside to her sweet little French bulldog and the police, who were at the time already there. This was turning into a very scary true neighbor situation. When I was walking my dog, curiously, I saw Victor park his car 3 streets away and walk to the scene as if he was hiding the vehicle from the police. But that thought didn't occur to me at the moment. Later, when we checked the doorbell footage, we saw the burglar standing there before the break-in, calmly discussing which house to target in their native language. Nothing was stolen. No one was caught. I told the police it felt like a setup, but I never heard back. A week later, I was at a housewarming party when my partner texted me. The music next door is insanely loud again. A few minutes later, he called me and his tone changed to pure terror. Victor's car had just come tearing through our front garden and slammed into his own front door. 2 men were frantically loading the car with high-end electronics like flat-screen TVs, professional speakers, and other expensive gear. They looked like the same men from the week before. This was easily one of the scariest true stories of 2025. This time, the police were a lot quicker. They arrived in exactly 7 minutes. The officers intercepted the men while they were still loading the car. When asked for ID, the men claimed they didn't have any. Then things got surreal. The man behind the wheel looked the officer in the eye and claimed to be my neighbor, using Victor's actual name. But there was a catch. In the 9 months that they lived next to us, Victor had never spoken a single word of fluent English. This man, however, spoke fluent English with a thick accent. Realizing the game was up, the men slammed the car into gear and a violent pursuit followed through our quiet streets until the police managed to box them in and arrest them. But my partner could still hear movement inside our neighbor's house. The police went back in and dragged out a 3rd suspect. As we were inside our own home with an officer to report the damage to our property, the doorbell rang. We turned around and there he was, the actual neighbor, Victor. He was unrecognizable. His face was a swollen, bloody mess. One eye was swollen shut, his mouth was torn, and his arm hung at a useless angle, covered in what looked like defensive stab wounds. He looked feral, aggressive, and broken. The police officer tried to intervene, but Victor flat out refused to file a report or cooperate. Since the victim wouldn't speak, the officer had no choice but to send him back to his house. Later that night, Victor rang our bell again. He was trembling. He confessed confessed that he cheated on his wife, and he claimed that she had sent people to take him out. He begged to sleep at our house. Terrified and wanting no part of this underworld drama, we refused. This was the most intense of the very disturbing, true scary events we've ever faced. My partner offered to drive him to the hospital instead. We dropped him off at 10:30 p.m., telling him we were staying elsewhere for the night because we no longer felt safe. But we didn't stay elsewhere. We went home, locked every door, and tried to breathe. At around 1 a.m., our dog started growling. A specific low growl he only uses when someone's at the door. We checked the doorbell camera, and there he was. Victor was back from the hospital, standing on our porch, ringing the doorbell multiple times. We sat in the dark, watching the screen in silence. It felt like one of those very scary, true New Year's Eve nights where things just go horribly wrong. Then after what felt like an eternity, a car turned onto the street. Victor panicked. He scrambled off the porch and hid behind our cars in the driveway, crouching in the shadows. Watching this bloodied, broken man lurking in the dark behind our own cars was one of the most unsettling things I've ever seen. The car stopped and a woman got out. It was his wife, Elena. She walked toward her front door, paused, and glanced at our driveway. She saw him. We held our breath, waiting for a confrontation, or worse. She walked toward him, and as she stepped into the pale yellow glow of the street lamp, she began to wail, a haunting, guttural crying. He didn't say a word, and she kept asking questions, her sobbing getting louder and louder, echoing through the empty street. Eventually, they both got into the car and drove away.
We need a new location by midnight.
We didn't even know where their dog was.
I can't reach him.
Elena
The signal
eventually
is
returned
jammed.
alone. She found the dog inside, and she told us she doesn't think she'll ever see her husband again. Whatever the real story is,
It doesn't matter.
drugs,
Listen
debt,
closely.
or
The
marriage
drop is
turned
tonight at
lethal, I've
midnight.
realized one thing. I don't think I want to know. This all started back in 2017 when I moved into a new house in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio with my parents Mike and Susan and my little sister Haley. Before I get into the juicy part of the story, I need to explain a few details about my room and its placement in the house for everything to make sense from my point of view. This experience certainly ranks among the very scary, true being followed encounters. The house we moved into is a split-level home, meaning it has staggered floor levels connected by short flights of stairs. My room was neither on the main floor nor in the
What about the
basement.
stuff inside?
It
We
sat
can't just
exactly
abandon
between
it.
the two
It's too
at ground
risky.
level.
We have to move.
One wall shared space with the garage,
We
and
have
the
to move the
opposite side had
package
a
tonight.
large
They
window
know
that
we are
looked out
here.
into the backyard.
You sure?
At the
What about
time,
the
that window
cameras?
had plastic
Don't worry
vertical
about the
blinds
cameras.
with
Just
several
listen to
missing
me.
panels. So even when they were fully closed, I could still see outside through the gaps. On the garage side of my room was my closet, which had large sliding mirror doors. This meant that when I was in bed, no matter which side I faced, I could always see my window reflected back at me. I started noticing things about a year after we moved in when I was 15. I remember watching YouTube videos on my tablet late at night since I had trouble falling asleep. One night, I heard something outside my window. I had left it open because it was really hot and we hadn't invested in an AC unit yet, so I relied on whatever breeze I could get. After hearing what sounded like footsteps or shuffling, I quickly paused my video and put the tablet down. The noise stopped along with the video, which made me think it had just been part of what I was watching, or maybe my imagination. This wasn't a case of disturbing cases of caving gone wrong, but it felt just as suffocating. I resumed the video and heard it again. I looked to my left toward the window but didn't see anything, so I eventually fell asleep. For a few nights, nothing happened. But then one night, a couple nights later, during my usual late-night YouTube and show watching routine, I heard the shuffling again. I paused what I was watching and listened, this time longer than before. I swear I could hear breathing now too. I glanced at my window, but again, there was nothing. I convinced myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me and turned to face my closet instead. As I picked my tablet back up to resume the video, I saw something move at my window through one of the gaps in the blinds reflected in the mirror. A chill ran down my spine. This was one of those genuinely scary, true moments where your heart just stops. I got up immediately and went to wake up Mike and Susan, deciding it was better to be safe than sorry. I told them what I had seen and heard, and even though my dad clearly doubted me, he went outside to check the backyard. A few minutes later, he came back saying he had checked every corner and didn't did anything. He told me that if someone had been there, he would have heard them come in through the squeaky gate, or he at least would have heard them leave. He also checked the ring camera, which showed no one walking around the house toward the backyard. I suggested that the person could have jumped the fence into the neighbor's yard, but he quickly shut that down, saying we lived in a safe neighborhood and that I should stop watching scary movies. Unfortunately, I believed him and went back to bed. Every couple of weeks or months after that, I'd hear things again. Each time I convinced myself it was all in my head and tried to focus on my videos or fall asleep. When winter came and everything was covered in snow, it stopped, and I eventually forgot about it. But the following year, it started again. It didn't happen often, once or twice a month at most, and always past 11 p.m. I tried not to pay attention to it, even when the noises sounded like clear footsteps or deep breathing. I felt more on edge than I would in any of the horrifying true babysitting stories I'd heard. I watched a lot of scary movies and videos, so I kept telling myself that had to be the reason. I avoided looking at the window altogether, even though I tried to believe it was all in my head. Part of me was terrified of being proven wrong. One night, against my better judgment, I looked. Not directly at the window, that was too scary. I looked at the mirror instead. This time, I swear I saw the silhouette of a person. I ran upstairs again, and once again, after checking the entire backyard, Mike told me the same thing he had the year before. And once again, I believed him. This went on for a while. I started going to bed earlier, watching videos louder or with headphones, and completely avoiding my mirror, or worse, looking directly at my window. It all stopped when the weather got colder and started again in mid-spring. One night in early December of 2021, there was a huge windstorm. It felt like a precursor to a chilling, true scary blizzard. I was watching a stream of my boyfriend Tyler over Discord when I decided to grab a glass of water around 11:30 p.m. On my way, I noticed my parents sitting in the living room. It caught me off guard since they rarely stayed up that late, let alone outside their bedroom. Their faces looked tense and preoccupied. I asked if everything was okay, but they brushed it off, assuring me it was nothing.
Now that
This
you know
wasn't
the
a case of
truth,
disturbing true
make sure you
catfish
don't miss
scenarios.
the next
This was a
one.
real physical
You know
threat.
where the button
I
is.
assumed I had walked in on a conversation not meant for
Now
my
you're
ears
in
and
on a
headed back toward
secret.
my room.
Don't forget
As
to
I turned
like
toward the
and
stairs, flashes of
subscribe
red and blue
below.
light caught my attention through the front window. A police car was pulling into our driveway.